Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is January the 7th, and I appreciate you joining me for this ride. Today, we're going to talk about impeachment. We're going to talk about the impeachment of Donald Trump, the pending and future, I think, impeachment of Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is starting to get it, too. Isn't that interesting? He's understanding. I'm quoting Donald Trump that his fear of impeachment is real, which means that it will absolutely derail any hope for the next 2 years. And I'm not just saying this in a vacuum. I'm quoting the president. This is the same story that we heard from Steve Bannon a couple of weeks ago. Steve Bannon said if this administration does not get their agenda online, and then more importantly, I think properly messaged to the American people, if that doesn't happen, then there's going to be 2 years of lame duck presidency, which is suboptimal for sure. And then you're going to get prison sentences. You're going to get indictments, you're going to get arrests, and you're going to get people from this administration in jail. And I think what I realized as I was considering this, there's basically three camps of people in America. And we think of them as being Democrats, Republicans, and independents. That's how they get polled. But I think that camp of independents also includes sort of a sub-faction. And I'm going to call them the bacon cheeseburger nationalists, because that's my thing. And I think that is more broad than most of you guys would admit. It's also post-partisan. And so what I'm realizing as I look out into the social media sphere and the influencer fights, which were going on previously, now we're going to have media fights. We're going to have Dan Bongino picking fights with Matt Gaetz yesterday and that kind of nonsense. And I want to get into that a little bit only because I think it represents some people understand the lay of the political landscape, and some people are still operating in an old mentality. And the old mentality is either you're on my team or you're on the other team. And some of you in our chat right now, today, this morning, are thinking that way. You're like, oh, either you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, and you must choose. And the fact of the matter is, I can choose to be something very different. I can choose to be someone who has traditional values that are American. They're Christian, but we don't have to call them that because even if you're not a Christian, the odds are we actually kind of sit in the same sort of category. We actually sort of see the world the same way, whether or not you actually put the name label Christian, whether or not you go to church. The odds are you probably actually share most of your values with Christianity. That's how we can make the argument it's a Christian nation. But I'll argue that we are a bacon cheeseburger nation. Okay? So here's where it gets really goofy. If you see the world in a binary, like you're on my team or you're not working on my team. And by the way, Dan Bongino sees this world. And I actually think that that most of the political establishment sees the world this way. They just assume that if you agree with me on some things, then you actually tacitly joined my team. I didn't join anybody's team. And some of you out there are independent thinkers, and you also do not join any team. And you're transactional. Sometimes there's a libertarian candidate that's going to be superior at state office or in local office. Sometimes there's going to be a Republican who's going to give you the best opportunity. But Lindsey Graham is a Republican. Right? Mitt Romney was a Republican. There's a lot of these people that are soft and squishy, and I would say that that's probably actually the majority of the meat of the Republican Party. People that are not paying attention. It sounds good, so I'm going to go with it. I don't look into it too deeply. And you don't have to be a geopolitics expert, which I am not. And you don't have to be an expert on government function, which I am not. You can just be a regular person and go talk to regular people and realize that most of us, we just want you to do a couple of things well. We want you to solve domestic problems if that's what you are able to do. And actually, if you are even chartered with that problem, like don't bite off things that you're not supposed to be involved in. For example, the federal government doesn't need to be involved in daycare, right? And then the second piece of this would go down to like solve the problems overseas in a way that makes us feel like we're the good guy, we're doing good things, and you understand, we feel like you've got it under control because that's actually outside of what most people's purview is. The Trump administration has a massive messaging problem right now. And I thought that they were hiring people that were Fox News hosts and media stars and podcasters and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pete Hegseth and, getting that sort of group of people in, RFK Jr., very media savvy. I thought they were putting in people who could mesh in well. And the only one that I'm seeing that's doing really a great job of it is because she's doing the least amount of it is someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who has been very, very sophisticated in her media movements. And she was actually pretty good about it beforehand. She did a turn of a corner that is almost impossible. Consider this if you want to see someone who does a successful PR move. You had people badgering for Tulsi Gabbard to be in the Trump administration at a cabinet level position. And she was a former 2019, 2020 Democratic candidate for the primary. She wanted to be the president of the United States as a Democrat. That's a pretty wild pivot. And she did it successfully. And I think she did it in a reasonable way. We've got a messaging problem, which is truly problematic. And we've got a group of people that seem like I said, they're working on an outdated sort of protocol. The American people are both more sophisticated and less sophisticated than anybody is giving them credit for. And the people that sit in that independent, undecided, post-partisan, bacon cheeseburger nationalist, just stop screwing with me so I can be left alone and raise my family and be successful. Those people I actually think are very successful at seeing through the slop, seeing through the messaging, seeing through the PR and seeing what actually is happening. And then you've got a lot of people on either side, left and right, that just want to consume what is being told by their party because they want to be on a winning team. And it feels good to be on a team if you don't want to get involved in it. If you just kind of say someone is going to look out for it, it's just not going to be me. I'm too busy. That's what I want to talk about today. And I think it's actually, it's kind of a nuanced position, as is often the case with the things that I say here. Like when I was, quote unquote, endorsing Eric Swalwell. I got so much hate in comments from people. They were like, you're endorsing Eric Swalwell. You've lost the thread. No, I'm endorsing the idea of accelerationalism. I want the idea that we are going to rush towards something and don't slow me down. Let's just do it. Let's freaking do it. If it's going to be stupid, let's just embrace how stupid it's going to get and then see that fail and then do the next thing. That's what I would like to see. If we're going to have to endure a slow, painful death or something that's short, swift, and ridiculous, and it equals Kamala Harris and Eric Swalwell, okay, fine. Give me the short, painful death. I know it'll suck, but let's do it. And then we can get to the next iteration. Let's move on to the next life if that's what it's going to be. It reminds me of that movie with Tom Cruise. I think it was called Edge of Tomorrow, where he's injured and his leg is broken. He could live through the end of the day, but she just shoots him in the head. Emily Blunt shoots Tom Cruise in the head, and then they move on to the next, iteration. Let's get back to training. That's kind of where I'm at right now. All right. So we're going to get into all those things. We're going to read a sponsor right now. This is our friends over at Patriot Protect. A couple of you guys have reached out and told me that you've had positive success with this company. I had the same thing. So really appreciate them. Patriot-protect.com/KYLE. We've had one of the co-founders on here a number of times talking about the arms race, and essentially with the advent of AI, the arms race when it comes to scams and frauds and people online trying to get access to your data is essentially a nuclear arms race at this point. You've got weaponization happening at a very high level, and 2025 was probably a turning point where the threats to privacy and security, they became more powerful, more precise, more targeted, harder to stop, and a lot of that has to do with AI and the companies that are getting involved. And it's big business. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on either end, both hijacking companies' information and then also hijacking yours and selling it off piecemeal individually or on the dark web. If you guys want to protect yourself from this stuff and make yourself less of a target, nobody's ever going to be completely insulated. Nobody's going to keep you safe from everything. If you're online, you have exposure, but you can reduce that by getting rid of your name and your phone number and your address, your family members, your age, your online behavior, and so on from the publicly available data broker websites who literally sell you for almost nothing. I mean, fractions of pennies on the click. If you want to make sure that these data brokers are not listing where you live and who you live with and how to get in touch with you and how to call you up and scam you and whether or not you're a kind of person who lives in a nice neighborhood with money, this is the way you do it. Go to patriot-protect.com/KYLE. You'll save 15% on an annual subscription. We're in our second year with it right now. So far, so good. My family members have signed up. Members of the Suspendables have also told me finally they listed. I got an email last night from one of our listeners saying, hey, I'm having a good one. By the way, he also wanted to know about holsters. So yeah, if you ever want to engage me, ask me holster questions, what flashlights are you using? I'm a sucker for telling you about gear. So anyhow, it's a good engagement tactic. Hundreds of millions of Americans have been exposed. If you guys want to make sure that you're not in the data group that's getting scammed, check them out. Link in the show description. Let's do today's program. Let's launch in. I guess it's not fair to say, like, let's launch into today's program, although that's kind of like the way my mindset is. I always kind of think that I'm going to set the table, and the table ends up being set longer form. This is why, by the way, I love podcasts and why I hate doing television, and why the mainstream sort of media, the way that people, I guess, digest the stuff that's out there, it bothers me because I think it's just slow and outdated. You want to talk about something that's slow and outdated? Let's look at this. This is kind of funny. And I'm going to talk about Rand Paul in a second, who says utterly reasonable things. Okay, Rand Paul. This is a Fox News headline, and I'm going to read you the date. It's January the 6th. Here, let's actually scroll down and show you. It's January the 6th, 2026. Okay? That's yesterday. Just after, right around noon yesterday, when we finished the podcast, a woman named Christine Crowder was placed on the terror watch list despite the FBI never proving she entered the Capitol building, a Senate committee is saying. There's something utterly hilarious about this. This is why mainstream media is dead to me. This is why I work on X as often as I do. And it's the speed, it's the swiftness, and the accuracy, and the ability to just forego all of the handlers, if you will. And having been on Fox News, and I got nothing against the times that they invited me on. It was nice that Bongino invited me onto his program when he was doing Unfiltered. It was nice that Jesse Waters had me on to say my thing. I was on with Laura Ingraham. I think she was the best of all the hosts when it comes to talking and asking questions and just shutting up and listening to someone, because theoretically you brought a guest on who knows more than you do about the topic. I've never been on Hannity on purpose. You guys won't be surprised to hear that. This kind of tells you a lot about what we need to know. They broke the story yesterday. The Biden FBI tracking a Catholic teacher. We broke this story 2 years ago, guys. Brianna Morello, who's now working at InfoWars, was covering it, brought in Christine Crowder to the studio at InfoWars and was doing an interview with her. I broke this story with Sonia Labasco 2 years ago. And not only did we break it on this little podcast, which, again, we're small but mighty in many ways, and the things that we do punches way above weight. The people that are listening to this and are influenced by some of the things that are being said here and the information that's being shared, it's way outsized for the audience size that we have. The story of Christine Crowder is wild because after we covered it, me, Sonia Labasco, she's one of my suspendables. If you guys don't know, I got a group chat on the back end. I talk with and around and about, stuff with Sonia every single day, including yesterday. And she's always more snarky than I expect her to be, which I love. I absolutely love, like how she's one of us. I actually went back and watched an old interview. Sonia Labasco is like the only female suspendable in our little group, and she's totally one of us, and she would make the same jokes we would. Here's what's crazy. After we did an interview, after we discussed the story of Christine Crowder, whose husband is an air marshal, by the way, a federal air marshal, who was looking at an assignment and assigning people to surveil his own wife because she was in Washington, D.C., but didn't go to the Capitol on January the 6th. We found out what the actual reason was that they were there. And that's what this sort of this document or this hearing was all about. I'll read some of it, but I just want you to understand that after we ran coverage on it from this program, the FBI showed up at her door within 24 hours. The Biden FBI, the regular FBI, it's the same FBI. They showed up and asked questions of her and found out, like, oh, crap, the only reason we're here is because we saw a picture that was supposed to be you, and the woman is waving with her left hand at the Capitol steps and resembles Miss Crowder. No relation to Stephen Crowder. She's waving with the left hand, and Christine Crowder has been disabled and permanently disabled on the left side for like 26 years. So she walks with a pronounced limp, and she's unable to use her left side in any meaningful way. And the FBI agents saw it at that moment, and then they were able to close it down. And what are we getting? Repackaged, regurgitated slop from this administration acting, and it's not just the administration, obviously, this is going to be the members of Congress talking about the weaponization of the, on J6ers. Well, what have they done to fix that problem? We're actually losing the support of Julie Kelly at this point, who is frustrated. The FBI put the Biden administration for 2 years. They were investigating a Catholic school teacher, put her on a terror watch list based on an unverified tip that connected her to the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol 2021, according to a new congressional account, and also to the Kyle Seraphin show 2 years ago. Christine Crowder was not at the U.S. Capitol when a mob overran the building to prevent the certification of the 2020 election. The findings released by the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee just revealed. She was, however, in D.C. for a rally for Donald Trump the day earlier, and the FBI spent 23 months tracking her for it, the report says. those FBI agents, I can assure you, still work for the FBI. And this is part of the problem. They're still there. Okay, a free society cannot tolerate a system in which programs and authorities intended to keep the American public safe are instead weaponized against them due to mere suspicion, Rand Paul said. The records released today show how an unverified tip that the FBI failed to substantiate led to nearly 2 years of surveillance of an American who was innocent. According to the timeline put out by the committee, the FBI's probe first began in January of 2021 when an anonymous tipster claimed to have recognized her in news coverage from the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Despite an initial negative match for her face and geolocation, the FBI expanded its probe and for the better part of 2 years conducted physical surveillance on the Crowder household, put her on a terror watch list, secured a warrant for her Facebook account, and even prepared prosecution against her, the report said. This has been the supposition of this program, and it actually dates back to the original podcast when I first put my face out there in the world and talked to Dan Bongino about it. What happened on January 6th was a revealing moment. It wasn't a change per se. It was a moment when Americans got to see what it is that the federal law enforcement system that they deal with does and how it operates and why it operates as it does. I got a question on X that's going to relate to this, but it's very simple. The FBI serves its own interests. It serves the interests of the people that are trying to make sure that they stay relevant. And they think they're the good guys. Guys, there's nobody that's working in the Bureau doing some of these things that are truly and objectively evil. There's nobody there that's actually like thinks they're the evil one. I promise you. Okay? I got a comment yesterday on X. This is from Max Morton real quickly. Max Morton describes himself as a retired United States Marine, former CIA paramilitary ops officer. That's worth noting. I don't know, but I'm going to take Max Morton at his word that that was his background, which means that he worked in the operational side of the CIA, in the paramilitary ops side of the CIA. They're a very different animal than some of the intel operatives, and especially very different from the intel analysts. Analysts tend to be indoors. Ops people tend to be outdoors. There's a big difference there in the CIA and also at the FBI. I know a few outdoor dogs from the CIA. They're not the people that I am worried about in this country. Max said this: can you discuss why the FBI is so powerful that it can capture political appointees, congressmen, and pretty much anyone and make them service the administration and the administrative state's agenda? What is it using to accomplish this? That's a great question, because it's the question of why is Dan Bongino out? Why did he leave? Why was he not effective? Why is Kash Patel not doing what we think? Why is Pam Bondi out there not getting prosecutions and creating this PR nightmare for people who are looking and saying, what the hell are you guys doing? Well, it's real simple. Personnel is policy. There's this guy that said that went into the FBI. I thought he was going to do something about that. I heard there was going to be total personnel warfare, but there was not. How does it capture? Why is the FBI so powerful? It doesn't need to threaten people. It lets people know that if you disrupt the status quo, then you're going to be responsible for any losses that happen on that watch. And everybody is terrified to disrupt the thing that is sort of working. Imagine a vehicle that you can't get started and you don't know anything about mechanics. You don't know anything about how the engine works, and you fire it up and it wasn't going to start and it was shuddering and all this other kind of stuff. And you thought there might be an electrical problem and you're getting the gauges all going everywhere, and you start that car up and it's shuddering, but it's moving, and you've got to just get one place. I did this once with a motorcycle. I fell over on my motorcycle. I literally just fell over on wet streets. Very embarrassing. In front of 3 different law enforcement agencies, by the way. Texas state trooper was there. There was a Travis County sheriff's deputy, and then Austin PD, all in the same area, right behind the capital of Texas. Wet roads. I think it's 15th Street. Boop, fell right over. Broke the handlebar, messed up the blinker. And I'm like, I just need this to get to class, because otherwise I'm going to miss whatever the heck it was. I was post-military GI Bill, trying to go to the community college, getting a class done. So I rode this janky ass motorcycle that was all falling apart. There was like stuff, like the tires were bald. It was my own damn fault that I fell over. Just got it there. It's like 6 more blocks and I wasn't going to be able to walk, and I wasn't going to leave my bike there. So I rode this janky ass bike. I didn't want to do anything that was going to screw up it running and getting me there. Once it was over and I had time, I could look at it. Same deal. Your janky ass car, you fire it up. The gauges are all crazy. Do you want to go and turn on the radio and see if it's going to work? And if you can draw a little bit more amperage out? And see if that's the thing that kills the car? No. Are you going to turn on the HVAC system? You're like, it's hot. I'm going to manually roll down the windows. I'm just going to deal with it. If you've ever had a piece of crap beater car, like many of us have, There are times when you're like, I better not touch anything because the whole thing will fall apart. I don't even want to wash it because if I wash it, it's possible the doors are going to fall off. I think the dirt might be holding everything together. And I do think people get into these agencies having not had the institutional knowledge. Bongino, no institutional knowledge. Patel, no institutional knowledge. All political appointees walk into these places and they're basically convinced right away that if you change anything dramatic, all the failures that are going to come down are going to be on you and you alone, and you're going to have to eat it. Everybody is risk averse to try to make those dramatic changes, even though they talked big and they promised it. The minute you get in that driver's seat, man, I'm hovering over that dial, and I do not want to change the station even, because God forbid if I change the station and I get a little bit more bass, I went from talk radio to country music, boom, like I'm going to have something fall out the back. Riding a beater, that's what the United States government is. It's held together with duct tapes and dreams and bad ideas and administrative state that's been there forever. And they are very, very specifically letting people know, if you push here, I don't know where it's going to come out. Unlike the CIA, which does stuff overseas regularly, and you see this happen, right? We've seen this all happen, all of us in our lifetime. They're happy to be like, I think the problem is this guy. Let's go take this guy out of there. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, now we have ISIS. Oops. They push one place, it pops out 3 other places, no big deal. But that's overseas. Nobody wants to be responsible for the next 9/11. Nobody wants to be responsible for the next catastrophic failure, whatever that looks like, financial collapse and so on. And this is the argument against the boomers. Boomers is not about you. It's just about age. It's just generally like time comes for us all. As we get older, we're more risk averse. I should be more risk averse today than I was when I was 20. When I was 20, I could fall off a motorcycle, ride on my face for a while, come up with half a face, and my face would grow back. Whereas my buddy used to say he loves working with 19-year-olds in strength training because they can do so many hard things. They can break their genitals off in the gym, and the next day they're fine. If you and I went out and did that, if anybody who's here who's over the age of 30, let's call it, that's not even that old. If you're over 30, if you're over 40, you know it. If you're in your 50s and 60s, you definitely know it. You go push it too far to try to perform like a 20-year-old for a day, you're going to remember that for a month, right? There's a reason why age and risk aversion are kind of like, they go hand in hand. The older you get, the less risk averse. Putting a 60-year-old in is not a great idea. Putting a 90-year-old in, like Chuck Grassley, when a rug could be the end of your life. Literally, falling over a rug will end you. You'll be in the hospital with a broken hip and you'll die of pneumonia within a month. Ask me how I know. I used to work in that place. This is the issue. And this is why we need people who are bolder. Yeah, they're going to make more mistakes and they have less wisdom. That's why you hope you have age and counsel. But gosh darn it, wouldn't it make some damn sense to have some people in their 30s and 40s that still have a little bit of balance between risk aversion and the ability to be bold? And that's what I think is happening here. And that's what I'm going to explain as this is how they capture them. They come in and they scare the hell out of them. This is not some like really deep-seated plan to do evil. All these people think they're doing the right thing. They all think that their program is critically important. And if we don't have my program, the world will fall apart as we know it. And so the alternative to doing any of the things that people need always comes up to the same. It's better to just perform and talk tough and do kayfabe. Let's do pro wrestling. And the best part of pro wrestling is it's never real. This is Fox News. Doing pro wrestling, it's exactly what you think it would be. Pro wrestling, because it's better to message that we're doing something than to actually do something and potentially have that entire jalopy fall apart. We have moved to the point where Americans are looking for the jalopy to fall apart. Let's start something new. We'd rather drive a go-kart than a Ferrari that doesn't have any sort of connectors holding the doors on. And our Ferrari is beat to hell. It looks okay with the paint job, but the guts of it are wrecked. It's got sugar in the gas tank and it's got sand in the block and it's got, I don't know, I'm not an engine guy, but I'm just saying like it is a mess mechanically, but we're holding it together and it looks okay from the outside. And that's what this looks like. This is Kristi Noem talking tough about Gavin Newsom. These are two kayfabe, whatever you call it, WWE wrestlers. And Jesse Waters is the let's get ready to rumble guy in the middle.
The governor of California says, bring it on.
Oh, we'll be there. We think that this is just the tip of the iceberg. So Minnesota is unbelievable what we've seen, but it is leading us to networks all over the country. and overseas, and we're going to follow every single one of them. Homeland Security Investigations is an incredible team of individuals who go after human traffickers, sex traffickers, but the fraud that we have in our public programs that are tied to California, absolutely. We're going to come to you, Governor Newsom, and we're going to arrest every single individual that has ties to this kind of stealing of taxpayer dollars, and we will hold them accountable.
I didn't realize we were going to have an interesting appearance by what looks like some pasted on eyebrows. Kristi Noem, that was an interesting choice that you made there to grow out your eyebrows and then fluff them up. Very strange. Looks like a couple caterpillars crawled up there. Sometimes these people do some weird stuff. Now, let's just say this. I got the same vibe from DHS Barbie that I got from watching at least I didn't watch the whole show. I guess I just watched the previews of the Bring It On movies where the cheerleaders have fights with other cheerleaders, which sounds super serious. And they're like, you can bring it on. And she was like, oh, bring it on? Like, it has already been brought. That's what I just heard Kristi Noem, who's basically about as masculine as Gavin Newsom. Two feminine politicians trading insults on television. That's kind of what that was. So does anyone think that we're going to see like major changes there? I don't. How about just like people that are sensible? And I think this is where we're at. This is what the bacon cheeseburger national crowd is interested in. Can we just speak honestly about certain things? Like, we don't love what was going on in Venezuela. We think that there probably is a bad guy running it. It sounds like he was a dirtbag and he ruined a bunch of people's lives. But also, like, it's pretty weird to go and arrest that guy for like American laws. Can we have an honest position that doesn't have to be all the way to the right or all the way to the left and all like, it's Hulkamania versus whatever the Undertaker? Can we not just have cartoon cutouts? Can we have a real discussion? Like, adults have nuance. Whenever you've had a disagreement with anybody you love, you're like, okay, look, I agree with you on this. I generally think you're coming from the right direction. Here's where I think you're missing it. Rand Paul does that. Rand Paul also was calling out something from 2 years ago that they just figured out on that Fox News story. So here's a Rand Paul clip talking about, this seems like the middle ground. You don't have to love the guy. You can kind of be like, okay, fine. Like, here you go. Take the guy and prosecute him. Sure. But like, also, can we not pretend like that it's something that it's not?
How do we indict people for American laws who don't live in America? It's sort of a bizarre notion, but really it's a ruse. It's regime change. They wanted him gone for a lot of reasons that I agree with. He was a despicable leader. He impoverished his people. His people lost 30 pounds inadvertently over the last couple of years because of starvation. I wrote in my book, The Case Against Socialism, of a 16-year-old girl who's part of a gang, and her territory is a dumpster behind 4 restaurants where she scavenges for food. I wrote of another young man in Chicago who was in charge of a gang that would hunt pets to eat and hunt rodents to eat and pigeons to eat. That's what the story of socialism is. But everybody's ignoring this. Venezuela went from being a great country, but the decline began in 1970 when they began voting in socialists. This should be a debate between socialism and capitalism, but it's a separate debate on the constitutionality, separate from the debate between socialism and capitalism. But you won't hear from this from the left, and you're not hearing this from anybody on the right other than myself, is we need to try to encourage the Venezuelan people. I say encourage because we don't get to vote. Encourage them to choose capitalism. Encourage them to make contracts with our oil companies. But I think the administration is going to ruin the goodwill in that country if they continue to insist it's our oil and we're in charge and we're running the place.
That sounds really sensible. That's probably the reason why it's not really, it's not sensational and it doesn't sell really well. And he's kind of a boring presenter, which that's what I like about him. I don't need people to be completely, over the top and strong messaging. I don't need, I'm declaring war on you. And I don't want all of that. We're going after the grift and the black pill here. This is the thing from yesterday. And this continued and spilled into X yesterday, where you literally had a fight between Dan Bongino, like a mean like high school bully, and Matt Gaetz, like trying to too cool it. The two of them are talking about parties that they attended 8 years ago. And, they're showing clips of each other. It's silly, and it's obviously comprised, like it's made up. We can't buy it, not on an honest discussion. But it's not really sexy to talk about, hey, this is kind of bad policy and maybe we should go out there and advocate for things like, could you make some good choices on your own? Could you get away from socialism? We think that you should, but we're not going to force you to. By the way, we just like rolled in with the Delta Force and took your leader out. But you guys didn't like your leader, but maybe some of you did. It's so awkward. It's so awkward, but it sells. That's why. The attention span, the laser pointer, the movement of distraction is effective for a certain group. What it's not effective for is the post-partisan in the middle, who doesn't say, I have to vote with this team or I have to vote with that team. The people that want to they're like, can you just be serious? We're actually, and I'm going to conclude myself in that group, we are actually the most important voting bloc, even though we are the smallest voting bloc. Because you've got to convince me that you're actually doing something that makes a difference and that there actually is a difference between left or right, that you are like a notable difference on the right wing of the vulture versus the left wing of the vulture. And if you're not going to give me a solid argument, and if it's just that we got to come together or we're going to impeach Donald Trump, like, I don't know Donald Trump. And like, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm on the fence on whether or not we should just accelerate into whatever the next phase is and see it all collapse. Because I don't think America ceases to exist. I don't think all of us blip out of existence if our country doesn't have a functional federal government. I actually think the opposite. I think that the people who founded this country wanted the states to be in charge. So maybe we could make the federal government topple over on its own weight, its own stupidity that it can't seem to get out of its way from. And then what do you end up with? Well, you end up with the power going to the next level, which is the state, which is where it was meant to be in the first place. That's the anti-federalist position. It's kind of a weird nuanced take. I get it. Hoping the federal government fails so that the states can step into that void because they don't seem to have the nuts to do it themselves. And that's really, it's kind of regular. It's like, I want the CEO to fail so that my boss, who's my immediate supervisor, can have the leeway to do what he was doing previously before the CEO came in. That's kind of the argument right here. I don't think that's wrong. And I think there's a lot of people that are the most important and gettable voting bloc that you're not talking to when you're out there playing to the base. Because, yeah, you got to motivate your base, sure, but just stop lying to those of us that want like more intelligent discussion and more accurate discussion. You have to still do two things at once. You have to make promises domestically that you carry out, which is something we've played in a couple of clips. I'll play it again today. This is a Democrat strategist saying it. You have to solve domestic issues so people can see the things close to home. And then you could do things like create chaos overseas and create wiggle rooms and be able to put military bases in Greenland if that's the goal for foreign policy. Like, yeah, but people don't eat foreign policy. They don't put foreign policy in their gas tank, at least not directly. So if you're going to create that chaos, you better show people that you're getting rid of all of the folks that are taking up space in all the apartment buildings nearby and that are taking up place in the school so that their kids, teacher to student ratio is all jacked up. There are things that need to be done and they can be done. They're achievable. And what we don't see is really either good messaging on it or actual movement forward. And that's why things like the Epstein files are going to continue to be there. It is kind of a laser pointer distraction, the Epstein files, but it also represents you said something, you carried out not that. Now it's hard for me to believe you. Okay. That's what I'm going to take. Please support the program here and on the other places that you're listening. You can give it a thumbs up if you're watching on Rumble. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for joining there. Subscribe to the channel on either place. I don't know where we're going to be broadcasting through this year. It's an exciting game because I think we've upset certain people. I'm going to continue not to play the middle, but to play what I think is the common sense position of post-partisanship. So that's going to always be a more nuanced position. Guys, you may hear an ad from Spotify right now. Spotify at KyleSeraphinShow.com is the way that you can support us if you're a listener. And the reason why is because one, we get the best data, and two, I think you get the best user experience in the audio because you can switch to video whenever you want. You can also follow us over on Locals, which is a Rumble subsidiary. Locals is KyleSeraphin.com. That'll take you to our landing page. You can be a free member over there and interact with the community. You'll see some stuff that may be good for you. It also keeps you abreast of some things going on behind the scenes. Either way, subscribe, like, share it with a friend. That's the easiest way that you can support our channel for free. You just take it and you send it off free. I dealt with a company last night and they sent me something that was like an upgrade that I didn't pay for. And I was like, hey, really appreciate that. Super nice of you guys. Can I pay you for it? Like, what's the right answer? I don't want you guys to be out any money. And they're like, nope, just tell a friend. That'd be good. So you could do that for us. If the program's free, tell a friend. That would be appreciated. Let's do this. Let's do this sort of movement through the arguments that I have. The Epstein file stuff is never going away. We had a new sort of development / timeline loss. I think it's worth covering. But don't consider what happened with Jeffrey Epstein on its own. It's not a standalone issue. In many ways, it is a laser pointer distraction. I think it's relevant because it represents a few important things, and I've got some Theo Vaughn and some Dave Smith, and I don't agree with anybody 100%. This was actually my tweet of the day yesterday. This is my favorite thing. Like, critical news flash. We shared this in the chat after the program ended yesterday. Nobody on earth agrees with you 100% of the time. So if that's what you came here looking for, you're not going to find it. And I apologize right up front. And I'd also like to inform you, you are not going to agree with me 100% of the time. I don't agree with you 100% of the time. And more importantly, maybe most importantly, you do not agree with you 100% of the time over time and distance. If you've ever changed your mind on something, on anything, if you've ever swapped your opinion, then you also don't agree with you. You don't agree with 5 years ago you don't agree with 3 months ago you. Maybe you changed political parties. Maybe you converted to a religion. Maybe you changed jobs. You got a new perspective. You did something else. So if you're looking for 100% agreement in anybody, that's a fool's errand. I'm sorry that you think that is reasonable. I will disabuse you of that notion if you're open to it. And if you can't have your mind changed that everyone's not going to agree with you all the time, including you, you're going to have a rough life. And I don't want that for you. So in any case, and of course, my chat is full of people who are clever and you guys disagree with yourself and me. Of course. Okay. We're never going to all agree on all the same things. So the key is can we get to a point where we recognize it is not acceptable for you to make certain promises, distract us with them, and that the Epstein files are also symbolic as well as being important for what they are. And they represent a tier of power that's able to get away with things that we do not think is right in a just and moral society. The bacon cheeseburger nationalist position, the BCN position is very simple. If you hurt kids, it shouldn't matter how much money you have. If you hurt young women, even if they're of legal age, you should not get away with that in a moral and just society. And we all have this sort of like just uncomfortable outrage about it. And if you get away with it because of your connection to money, power, influence, politics, etc., if you're able to manipulate other people because of that sort of those connections, even that it's morally repugnant to us. And so it will never go away. And Donald Trump, for some reason, failed this. This is his failure. This is a 100% Donald Trump blew it. He failed to read the room on what it means. I'm also going to say the funny little like black pill war and the chicken little grifters and the thing that Bongino said. I will give you, by the way, at the end of the show, I will give you what Dan Bongino should have said as he re-entered society, because people keep bringing up he had an opportunity to go after actual bad guys, and apparently he didn't. But he wants to come out and talk about it again. That's going to be a losing episode. He had an opportunity to do it correctly, and I'm going to tell you exactly what a smart PR person would have advised him to do. It's probably not even too late for him to pivot to that. I just don't think that he has the humility to do it. It takes a little bit of self-effacing humor to do it. Okay, so that's a long way to lead up to Theo Vaughn talking about the ridiculousness of what's being released with the government sort of continuing to slow drip out Epstein information.
There's some photos. This is the best thing. Look at these photos. Everything redacted in them. These could be photos from anybody's phone. Everything redacted. And then one mark of the beast or something from Zodiac Killer on the one that he'd drawn on. Just bizarre. I mean, it's just like,
it's so strange.
Why?
Man.
Why would they just show us some of this stuff right before the holidays? Are they just trying to like everything now you have to think, is it trying to distract my attention from something else, you know? And the news reports, they don't even tell you about the real shit that's going on anyway.
Yeah.
So most of the stuff that's happening, here's the crazy part. We don't even know anymore. Yeah. Like most of the most serious shit that's going on.
Yeah.
We don't even have a clue.
Well, I think part of the thing, look, the Epstein, the whole story is so, like, it's so dirty. It just stinks. I mean, you just look at it and you're like, dude, look, we know what we know, but knowing what we know, how could you possibly piece this together that it's not some huge scandal? Right. I mean, like already when you just go, okay, so there's a guy who was convicted of pedophilia or convicted of soliciting prostitution from an underage girl, you know, then a decade after he's convicted, or at least 8 years after, he's still like in the most influential circles with all these. And then for national security reasons, you're telling me that this has to be hugely redacted? Like, what the hell? This just makes.
And there's the redactions. And this is what we saw in the first round of the Epstein stuff. You drop them out and you go, okay, fine. You gave me entire pages, hundreds and hundreds of pages where no information is on there. And some of it we get. It's like these people are not involved. Some of it is really ugly. Some of it is salacious allegations from people that can't substantiate them. And so it's hearsay. And so that's kind of ugly too. So we're running this fine line. But the problem is rather than just put it out there in the world and say, let's just take our medicine, see what it is, and there's a bunch of stuff going on, let's try to overwhelm people with all the information and let them just deal with it. And we're going to, if there's some bad people, so be it. They didn't want to do that. They tried to manage this. They tried to PR angle it. And all you get is two impressions. One, it's way worse than anything that we think it is. That's the first impression people have. When you won't tell me, I think it's worse. By the time, the cover up is always worse than the actual crime. And the cover up means that you've actually made it look worse. Some of it is your doing. The second is exactly what Theo Von just said. It's funny that comedians have a very piercing intellect on the human nature of this, because they're always out there reading the room. That's what comedians do. They don't have to be the best informed. They don't have the most facts, but they can see what the room needs, wants, and how it needs to be handled. They're PR people. That's what comedy is, especially stand-up. So it's a laser pointer that we're following around on the ground like a cat. He's like, what are you distracting me from? And that's a big question, and we all ask it. The other question, it shows an incredible either lack of competence or some really, really nefarious malfeasance. And I say that all the time. It's this dual. There's not a lot of binaries in the world where it's just like, it's usually known as in logic, it's called the false dichotomy. Okay. And that means that it's either yay or, A or B. That's the two choices. And you're like, well, the world is not just two choices. In the case of government performing a certain way, there may be some nuanced things, but they're so far on the edge that broadly speaking, what they're doing either involves an inability to do their job because of competence. Like they're not able because of whatever reason, whether it be institutional incompetence, whether it be, policy incompetence that's holding them back, but something is making them not function properly. And the other one is intentionality. So it's either by accident or not by accident, right? And that is kind of the way it is. There isn't really any other space. Those are actually all encompassing when it comes to the binary. So you can break it down there. Now, there's a million forks on each side of that road. But we got to ask the question, how is it that a law firm with one, and this is Tom Massey's word, so I'm quoting him directly, but with 5% of the resources of DOJ, I think there's law firms that are even way less than that, could take all the resources that the federal government is putting in and still get us a real actual, they would meet the deadlines that are required under federal law. Why? Because there's actually consequences. And that's the big issue we have with government. Government is accountable to government. This is actually the whistleblower sort of credo. The government investigates the government, finds that the government did no wrongdoing, and holds the government blameless and not liable. Well, that means that the government, which is meant to serve us, meant to represent us, is not doing the job that it is meant to do. Period. The end. Full stop. That is the end of the problem. Massey kind of hones in on this regarding to the Epstein. It's a microcosm for government inability to do its most basic function, which is do what it said and follow through on the mandates. We got 3 branches of government. This is basic civics. This is stuff you teach to middle schoolers. We have the most important power, the legislator. The legislature is supposed to lay out what is supposed to happen. Now, there's some nuances to that too, and they're really critical. One group of the legislature is supposed to be the masses, the rabble, the public square, the loud part, 435 members vying for a voice. And they all want to get their idea, and they got to convince each other to get a simple majority to move it up to the upper house, where the real serious people are supposed to make decisions. Real serious people are U.S. senators, and they are meant to represent the United States houses. They are supposed to represent the interest of the states, broadly speaking, not you individually. They're supposed to be a couple steps removed so they can make that sort of august decision on how to go forward. Luckily, we've got real serious people in there, like Chuck Grassley, who remembers when they invented dirt. He's a farmer that actually remembers farming before the advent of dirt at 90,000 years old. And we've also got Lindsey Graham, who walks around throbbing and craving the sexual pleasure of war starting somewhere. So that's what we got. That's our system. But that's what's supposed to happen in part 1. Part 2 is they wrote up the rules. Part 2 is the executive goes out there and says, aha, well, we will enact it in this way. And then part 3 is supposed to be the referee that says, that's not really what we think those words mean. We'd like to help you out and try to narrowly interpret. You went a little broad on this, or you didn't go broad enough. And so there's your checks and your balances, and everybody's supposed to be accountable to everybody in there. And it's kind of it's a heavy weight to the Article 1 powers. That's the way it was designed, and it's not working. And we know it's not working because the executive is doing what it wants. The legislator has kind of fallen asleep at the wheel, and the judiciary thinks that it's running its own government as well. So we all hate it, which is why I don't really care about the idea of a collapse. I'd love it to be divested at least to something closer to me. I can drive down to Austin. You can drive down to your state capital and you can get there within a day. It would take me many days to get to DC and I'd have to go get a hotel room. But I could drive down to Austin and I could make it back. Most people outside of Texas can get to their state capital and back in a long day if they needed to. I think that's the problem. These people know they're never going to face our actual frustration out loud. Tom Massey, why can't they get it done?
For the fact that these Epstein files still, there are millions of more documents that they're still reviewing at this point.
You know, if this were a private law firm with 5% of the resources of the DOJ, this would have been done by the deadline. And they just missed another deadline, which is the report to Congress, which is supposed to list all of the politicians that are in their files. And also, they're supposed to justify all the redactions 15 days after the first 30-day window. But the biggest problem isn't that they're missing the deadlines, is what they're redacting. So they're citing the Privacy Act, and they're trying to pretend like that overrides a law that we just passed that says you can't withhold records to prevent embarrassment. They're also citing FOIA standards, which don't apply to our law when they're trying to say that they don't have to release internal decisions. But our bill specifically says release internal decisions.
So what are you going to do about it?
We're looking at that.
And that is the question. Good job on the reporter. This is actually the job of the media, by the way, which we always refer to as kind of like that fourth branch that comes in and it's meant to hold them accountable by asking them questions and publicly shaming them. That's the job of the media, if there was a real job. This is ABC News. Epstein files, 2 million records in various stages of review, the DOJ says. 2 million records still outstanding. Well, that's an awful lot of records for something that has nothing behind it. And a review says that you have sensitive things in there that need to be reviewed. So again, you are out there saying big problems. The golden question, which has to be asked, is what are you going to do about it? And the answer is nothing. And I think we can see that. I think if you look at what Tom Massey is pointing out, he may have gotten that law through. But does anybody have the balls to actually withdraw funding? The answer is no, because they are worried about that jalopy falling apart. The status quo must be maintained. We cannot do anything radical. Don't move. Don't turn on the radio. Don't change anything dramatic. Don't reduce funding for something that is not following law, and show that you have to show that you're weak in order to maintain this weak, rickety ass car still going down the road because we're trying to get somewhere, even though that somewhere is not where we wanted to go. And it still may fall apart at any moment. And so that, for me, is this broad analogy. This is why bolder people need to step in there. And this is why we're worried about people coming in. Now, I don't need the smartest people to be in Congress. I think Tom Massey is probably too smart to be in Congress. If you guys don't agree with me, that's your business. We don't have to agree on everything. But I think he's too bright to be doing this. And it must be infinitely frustrating because he's got scumbags around him that are not bright. You got former pole dancers or cocktail waitresses. You got women who used to work in the bar. And there's some bright bartenders. I worked in food service for years, many years, at least a decade. There's tons of really bright people out there that are, under tapped. But they may not have a lot of information. They probably don't belong in Congress per se. But can they at least just follow the will and actually follow through on what they said? Can you do the thing you said, and can you give consequences? This is like basic parenting stuff. If you have a child and you make a threat and you don't carry through on the threat, what does your child learn? You'll do nothing. And that is a very well-learned lesson by our state. Massey calls it out on the Redacted podcast. Anytime I can play a little bit of this. Natalie and Clayton here, if you guys have joined me from previously watching or you currently watch Redacted, they're great. I still think Clayton is great. So we're going to play a little clip from that, a little bit more Massey, and we're going to keep moving.
I want to pivot now to Epstein because you have been obviously on the vanguard leading this against the DOJ, trying to get the DOJ to comply. And they have just gone now, missed another deadline. We want to put up some documents here. So this just happened. This was, they missed the January 3rd deadline to, can you unpack it for our audience? Like, what was the DOJ supposed to do?
Everybody knows, I think, by now that they missed their 30-day deadline. The legislation that I co-authored with Ro Khanna
that we got passed, 427-1, 100-0 in the Senate, and then the president signed. It gave them 30 days to release these files, and it prescribed what they can redact and what they can't redact. But also within another 15 days toward the end of that bill, they are required to give Congress a list. There it is, the highlighted part there, I believe. They're required to give us a list of the redactions, why they redacted it, but also a list of the politicians who were on the list. And they're not giving us that. So they've missed their second deadline.
What recourse do you have now? What recourse do you have now? They're violating the law.
Yes. By the way, this is like Congress is a little bit like the Nintendo game where you try to save the princess and you beat the enemy, the monster, the boss, and they say, "Oh, the princess is in the next castle."
I love that. I love that analogy. The goalpost, that's a clever way of saying that the goalpost is always moving. That was the original Mario story, right? Super Mario Brothers. You go out there, you finish the stage, but you didn't finish the game because the princess is in another castle, so you got to keep trying. And so every single time that they get kind of a win, the win is we're going to move the goalpost. There's still another boss to defeat. And so it's never ending. Now, that's great for people that want to keep getting elected and that want to run on this. And for the old way of looking at things, which is that don't worry about progress. The ongoing fight is the win. Americans like me, though, are kind of hip to it. They're like, you're going to have to show us some progress. You got to show us the win, or you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of all of this. And here's the wrong side for me. Democrats actually did the nuclear option a couple of times. They went after and impeached Donald Trump not once, but twice. So they've already shown that glass that you would normally have, the sort of civility of, yes, we're all playing the same game. Yes, we understand that this is kayfabe. Like, no one's going to get hurt. They actually went out there and they tried to hurt Donald Trump in a meaningful way. They impeached him. That was part one. Part two was they tried to imprison him at the state and the local, and then also even at the federal level, right? You had Manhattan charges, you had state charges in Georgia, and then you basically had the federal charges coming. There was a real serious chance that he doesn't, live his life as a free man and ends up dying in prison. And that may still be the case. That's not a good thing. And then you move on to what happened on July the 13th of year before last at Butler. And the follow-up. Guy hanging outside of the golf course. There are people that got the message, like, this dude is a threat. He needs to be killed. He needs to be taken out. And so that's real high stakes. That is the highest stakes it is when people are like, their life is on the line, not their freedom even, but their life, where they may actually be snuffed out because of some dirtbag saw what was happening, saw what should be happening. And now he's out there saying, well, guys, you're not acting. And the result is going to be my next 2 years are going to be lame duck and I'm going to be screwed. And instead of like doubling down on what Tom Massey is saying, where we need to stop moving the goalposts and just achieve something, they're failing at it, I think. And so here we're going to go back to Theo Vaughn. We're going to go back to Dave Smith talking about it. Dave Smith highlights the problem that many of us see. Absolute PR disaster. By the way, if you were just listening, you didn't see on the screen, but I just showed you that there is an NBC article predicting, I'm going to play you the clip in a second, of Donald Trump saying it himself, his own words, that if they don't get their act together, we are going to have a serious problem. Donald Trump is also a famous room reader in the way a stand-up comedian does. He can read the crowd. He sees when they're into it, when they're not into it, and he kind of goes with that flow, which is why he ends up doing these long-form speeches. So he recognizes the same problem that a comedian who's bombing recognizes. This is not going the way that I hope, and if it continues this way, impeachment and prison is probably in his future, the same way Bannon talked about the other day. And I know it's not going their way because this PR nightmare is actually leading to people like Julie Kelly, who is just a gun for hire, who has no principles as far as I can tell, who is pro-Monsanto and, gives money to Biden and Hillary and gives money to other people that you wouldn't like, Obama as a senator and a president. That lady is also starting to fall off the ladder because she's recognizing where the audience is moving. And it's not all of the right-wing base that's always going to crawl over broken glass. It's the people that are gettable voters. And that includes the people that are persuadable MAGA and the people that are bacon cheeseburger nationalists, independents that just want you to do your job. So here's Dave Smith articulating the PR nightmare. And I think this is exactly what is starting to hit the White House.
It's just been disastrous. I mean, I just couldn't, and not even just disastrous, like the policy was wrong, but just the way they handled it. I mean, the handling of the Epstein scandal that goes down in history as like the worst handling of a scandal I've ever seen. Literally, from all these guys running on, we're going to release this stuff. Pam Bondi having that thing where she gave the influencers
folders?
the binders.
Remember them holding the binders
and then
up
it
in the
turns out there was
distance?
nothing in them that was new. And then they pivoted on a dime to there's no such thing. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
You're crazy to think there was a thing to be released. Like, it was, and then to turn around, and then they turn around, and Mike Johnson said it will end the political order if we vote for Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill to release the files. And then they turn around and get pressured into voting for it. And now they're just redacting everything. And like, it's just, I mean, he lost so much credibility on that.
That the president has to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. So he has to be able to work on domestic issues and foreign policy. The problem we have here is he's not doing either one very well. And when people can't afford groceries and gas and their electric bills, they don't care what's going on in Ukraine. They don't care what's going on in Venezuela. They don't care what's going on in Iran. They can't pay their own bills. So you got to get our own house in order before you start doing other things. I firmly agree with you that there are definite positives to taking care of some of these things, but Trump needs to be able to explain better what he's doing on the domestic front while he's doing.
That woman is a Democrat strategist. She just said the same thing that I heard Rand Paul say, which is that, yeah, there's going to be some positives foreign policy wise. You created some chaos. You're going to be able to maneuver. There's some things that you're going to be able to negotiate and they will be beneficial. Sure, all those things can be true. But you got to simultaneously solve the problems. What she described was you have to actually do the America First agenda that you ran on. That's all she said. She said people can't, if they can't fill their gas tank up and they can't, afford groceries, then they're going to be in a bad spot. And a lot of people look at it and go, damn, yeah, that hits me. I mean, my bacon cheeseburger is now $12.99. And I feel like I remember a time not too long ago when I could have bought it for $5 or $6. So that's rough. It's difficult. That's difficult to square. And how do you square that issue? What happens when you lose Julie Kelly? What happens when you lose Democrat/Trump book writer? When you promise that there's going to be justice, that you're going to hold accountability. The Epstein files actually represent something broader. Again, accountability for people that we thought that think they got away with something and they cannot get away with it if we're going to have a just society. January 6th represents the same thing. We're now on January 7th. The statute of limitations for basic crimes that were committed on those days, they're over. Outside of ongoing conspiracy, which we've been told is out there, but you can't tell me this stuff. Again, I can't eat what you do not actually serve me. So the possibility, the wait for it, accountability is coming. That don't fly. It only flies for so long. Julie Kelly we were promised trials. We were promised accountability. We were promised deep state actors would be going to jail. What the hell is that? Real quickly, you guys may hear an ad from Spotify right now, so I'll just put this on the screen because it helps me visually recognize it. Subscribe to the channels. Make sure you guys are liking it. All right, ready? Julie Kelly, hard to watch. Not wrong here in this case. Here she is on Bannon.
Well, I'll tell you this too, Steve. I was told early on after the president won that there were going to be a lot of hearings in 2025 featuring January 6th defendants, their families, their attorneys, et cetera. We got none of that. So a lot of this is the weakness. The lack of accountability originates, I believe, in Congress. So they better step up because people are very frustrated.
Where do we go? Substack, all of it.
Substack, Declassified with content? Julie Kelly on Substack.
Go to Declassified Live with Julie Kelly and go. I always despise listening to that woman talk about something on her Declassified Live. A woman who's never had a security clearance has a website called Declassified Live. Like, that actually is great representative of the MAGA slop. But she's also not wrong when it comes to where's the accountability and what was the accountability going to be? It was going to be hearings. Okay. She said that the fault lies in Congress, and that's probably true. I think we can agree that it is dysfunctional, structurally dysfunctional since 1913. That's why the Senate doesn't work the way it was meant to and so on. They've also given their power over to the executive, and now they want to try to grab it back, but they're not doing so. Have they repealed the Administrative Procedures Act and tried to really rein in what goes on in the administrative end, the executive? No, they have not. So, yeah, of course it belongs at the fault of people in Congress. And what's Congress doing? Status quo, baby. Don't change the station. Don't touch anything on that dial. Don't turn on the AC. Keep that rickety ass car still riding down the road. Make sure you help the pharmaceutical companies. Go ahead and exempt them from any sort of liabilities. Exempt the drug manufacturers from their liabilities. This kind of stuff is funny. This is when you get to see what the machine is. A system is what it does. What does the system do? It protects big money. Doesn't matter whether it's, pedophiles or Epstein stuff, or whether it's just big companies making poison. This is Brett Cooper talking on what apparently is an approved position to call out anti-MAGA, Make America Healthy Again, another campaign promise. Americans weren't going to be healthy, but Congress is like, well, let's just slip this poison into the bill. Let's try to exempt all Monsanto pesticide, nasty chemical makers from liability, God forbid. Yeah. I'm sure Julie Kelly actually likes this one, so she wants to lay the blame at Congress's feet, but this was okay as long as we don't know about it.
House Republicans are slipping something into our new spending bill. It is Section 453, I believe, which would give immunity to huge pesticide companies. I think it would cover 57,000 different chemicals. And these are chemicals that have been linked to cancer and Parkinson's and infertility. And House Republicans are just slipping it in, which feels like they're giving the middle finger to MAGA. And so while I am excited about getting rid of paper straws, and I hate them, I think any girl who enjoys her iced lattes every day wants them gone, but it feels like this is a bigger issue that we should be talking about if we're concerned with the chemicals and that sort of thing.
That seems totally reasonable. Brett Cooper's a pretty sharp young lady, right? Successful, motivated, driven, came out of Daily Wire. Fine, guys. When people are right, they're right. Wasn't the agenda to make people healthy? Was it not to go forward and try to square things away? Or is this just all about money? Is this all about status quo like that? I'm going to suggest to you that the argument for this is we can't rock the boat because midterms are coming up and we just got to get some stuff passed. I'm going to share something with you that, as far as I know, no one's ever seen. Some of you guys have always wondered about the back and forth, the Dan Bongino feud. Again, I showed you that, he's doing the black pill fight and he wants to go after Matt Gaetz and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. This is the second to last communication that I had with Dan Bongino. And it took place on November the 9th of 2023. That's the text he sent me. This was after I pointed out that I think James O'Keefe is a creep, and that he's willing to get a woman who's under the legal drinking age drunk at a bar and let his friend grope her, and that they were trying to get close to her because she was a staffer of Chuck Schumer, but she was freaking 20. And if we cannot protect women that are 20 years old, even women that act like in a totally inappropriate manner, if we can't protect women from themselves, if we cannot be men that step up and go, you know what? Yeah, she did it to herself. Yeah, maybe she has character flaws for doing so. But can we not, as men, protect women when they're vulnerable? Because if you can't, you're not conservative. There's nothing conservative about allowing women to be victimized that way. I don't like that at all. And everybody has done things in their life where they're just like, I could have done that better. The right answer for James O'Keefe then was, this was a really bad idea. Yeah, we could have done better. Instead, they came out and attacked. Dan Bongino was pissed at me for that. Because it's so important for the movement, because God forbid we ever damage the brand or the team. The team equals the Republican, the GOP position, of which I am not a member. And I'm going to read this to you because if you're just listening, you're not seeing this text message, but allow me to just say it's on the screen and you can find it. Despite our disagreements about some things recently, and apparently that was James O'Keefe, quote, it's time to focus and move on. You're too important a voice for us. And it struck me yesterday when I reread this. I'm too important a voice for us. Us equals GOP, as far as I can tell from Dan's perspective. He said we all need to immediately move on and focus. Midterms. Yesterday, the dam broke. It'll never be the same. We need to fix this or our kids will ask us why we let this happen. Well, who the freaking hell is us when I didn't sign up for your team? And yes, I do care about my kids. And when I do care about my kids, it's me looking my kids in the eye and telling them that I have principles and they may or may not align with any political party on any given day. As a bacon cheeseburger nationalist type guy, I care about heritage values of this country. And more broadly speaking, and it's really critical, I was talking to a friend who's a retired agent, and we came to this conclusion. The bacon cheeseburger nationalist position is not so much that if you can't eat a bacon cheeseburger with me, then you can't be part of this nation. What it means is if you have a problem with me eating bacon or beef or a bun, it is your problem and you are the problem. But I can sit there and you can eat tofu or anything else. I'm just saying that you're not in the moral and let's say heritage majority of what Americans do. Assimilated Americans from every culture will sit down and have that and recognize that it's decidedly American to eat these things. And so we're not going to stop you from sitting at the table with us, but we're just going to say, if you got a problem with me eating this and you want to bitch and complain, which has been the history of it. It's like, white man, you're toxic. Oh, this, all these other, all the things that we've been seeing built up against regular American people, the average guy. This is why comedians are now starting to have more political power than they've ever had, because regular people, they're self-effacing. They know when they screw up. They make fun of everything. They're irreverent. Americans are a pretty funny bunch. And we do like to see a good roast. And we do like it when someone points out that we were, not even consistent. You're like, you got me there. That's fine. That's humility. Or you could just raise some money. Can we just raise some money? Like, we have to win the midterms, folks. It's always about the midterms. Again, that was the last interaction I had with Dan Bongino. I asked him what his plan was, by the way, and I'll show you that tomorrow. His plan was, we have to come together. That was November of 2023. That wasn't even that critical of an election situation, as far as I can tell. That was an off year. So let's raise some money for Donald Trump, though, yeah? Let's give it to Lindsey Graham.
So we need your help. If you want to have a firewall in the U.S. Senate to protect Trump's agenda, you need to give $5 or $10 tonight to lindseygraham.com. I'm going to share 50% of the money with Tim to help these 22 Senate races. We need to keep our Senate majority. We need to grow it. It's the firewall. We got to have some help. LindseyGraham.com. $5 or $10 from me and people adds up quickly, and it can make the difference. I know you can do this. I know times are tough, but this is money well spent.
Yes. Guys, can you just give $10 to Lindsey Graham, please? A million of you, so that he can have $10 million and give $5 million to so they can maintain the Senate. We have to win the midterms. Same guy. Right on 5 years ago now.
All I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I've tried to be helpful. And when it's over, it is over. It is over. The final thing, Joe Biden. I've traveled the world with Joe. I hoped he lost. I prayed he would lose. He won. He's the legitimate president of the United States. I cannot convince people, certain groups, by my words, but I will tell you by my actions that maybe I, above all others in this body, need to say this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are lawfully elected and will become the president and the vice president of the United States on January the 20th.
Well, that was true. That did happen. That's the guy. You want to give him $10? Can you guys give him $10? You know, the level of shamelessness that you see in these politicians is pretty wild. And I'll say that as somebody who got sued by the same lawyers that run the Fight with Cash Foundation that helped fund my family. They gave us $10,000 one time. Now, I've now sunk $20,000 into our lawsuit. I don't even own the house we live in, guys. I'm a renter, like many of you. And my life is very, it's not unstable, but there's no safety net in it. Like many of you that work contract jobs and you get the job or you don't. I make money day to day based on doing these podcasts, based on what our sponsors show up, based on the audience showing up and so on, the ad revenue. All right. I took $20,000 out of my pocket and I haven't asked anybody for a penny yet. That was a lot of money to me. Probably a lot of money to you too, for most of you. 20 grand, that's a big chunk of change to turn and write over to some attorneys. Really nice attorneys, by the way. I got great attorneys that are defending me because some words that I spoke that upset and hurt the feelings of the Trump administration FBI director. That's a hell of a situation to be in. And unless something goes dramatically wrong and the system doesn't work and help us out and give us a motion to dismiss, I probably won't be asking anybody to refund me my money. That's just the cost of doing business. It sucks, but I'm not trying to put that on anybody else that listens to me. Maybe we'll sell you some stickers one day, some bacon cheeseburger stickers if you guys want to put that on, or we'll do some hats and merch. but at least you're going to get something for it. I'm not going to just say, hey, throw some money into my pot here because I had to deal with a $20,000 cut yesterday or last year. Sucks. Telling you, writing a check to attorneys, even nice attorneys, stings. And I still have yet to put it up. I know that you guys in the chat have been offering. It's really lovely. It's super thoughtful. Lindsey Graham wants your $10 so he can maintain his position and make sure that we win the midterms. We, whoever the hell we is. I mean, it's just gross to me. Every bit of it is gross. It makes me sick. When I tell you that Donald Trump is seeing it, he is seeing it. Here it is. These are his words.
People love him, so he has done a great job. I just want to say this. I haven't read one word on this thing. Who the hell else could do this? And I think I gave you something. It's just a roadmap, and it's a roadmap to victory. You have so many good nuggets. You have to use them. If you can sell them, we're going to win. Because we've won 2 races in like 50 years. It's, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but just don't fight it. It doesn't make sense. There have been 2, and they were unusual circumstances. So whether it's a Republican or Democrat, whoever wins the presidency, the other party wins the midterm. And it doesn't make sense because we've had the most successful year probably in the history, they say. And now you add what happened essentially yesterday. We've had the most successful first year of any president in history. And it should be a positive. And make it a positive. So with that, I leave you. I do. And I started by saying I love you all. And I'll end by saying I love you. You're amazing people. What you do for this country is incredible. And thank you all very much. Thank you.
He gets it. He's going to get impeached. That's what. So this all ends up being about the midterm. And the problem with it always being about the midterm is that we constantly have an election cycle. We have people that want to get elected every 2 years. That's why the House is sort of dysfunctional. And people were meant to not show up there forever. So they're spending time on hearings and declassifying stuff instead of writing laws and funding things individually and debating on how much funding should be and pulling funding from places that they ought to go. So that's tough. And then you got your sort of proxy warriors. And that's why Dan Bongino's come back into the space. Everybody believes that, I think, if you're paying attention. I'm going to give you a couple of like snarky, comedic, but also just regular guys who seem really fed up. All these people could be my neighbor. All these people are probably like your neighbor. Every one of you has someone in your life that calls you up and you know you're about to get the downloaded rant of I'm just pissed off and I just want people to do what they said they were going to do. And they're not. So let's just go through a series of these kind of debunking the anything else like, oh, you did a great job. No, bullshit. You did a shitty job. And now you're trying to tell me that it's something it's not. You're trying to feed me a turd burger and tell me that it's beef.
Everyone's speculating, why would the Trump administration release Dan Bongino back to his podcast, exiting the important position at the FBI where Bongino actually had the power to hold corrupt politicians accountable, kind of like why we elected Trump in the first place. But Dan Bongino just posted on X why he's leaving the FBI. Because they have midterms coming, didn't you know? Why does it seem like all these people care about is the lousy midterms? If you noticed a couple of weeks ago when Tim Pool was attacking and going on rants against Candace Owens, all he could mention was the midterms, and Candace Owens is dividing the base, and we're going to lose the midterms, and we're going to lose the White House in 2028. No, we're going to lose the White House in 2028 because the man that we put in office to drain the swamp has become the swamp. And now you have Dan Bongino basically declaring war on those of you that are calling for accountability in the Trump administration. For those of you that want justice for Epstein victims and politicians that were involved in Epstein's blackmail ring, you are the ones that are dividing the base and the reason that we're going to lose the midterms, according to Dan Bongino.
It's another day in the Matrix. I hope we're all doing well. So the rehabilitation of Dan Bongino really didn't take that long. Slop eaters have very low standards. So all it takes is some Zioslop influencers like Tim Pool and then Chris Pavlovsky, his partner at Rumble, happy to have his needle mover back, and the slop will get delivered on time. People get brainwashed back into the 1.0 MAGA Ziodome, and everyone will be happy, but they need a bad guy. So what does Dan do? He says, no, I'm going to join MAGA 1.0 in the Zio Dome, and we're going to attack anyone who noticed I was an utter failure at the FBI. Anyone, and that means all the smartest people who were fans of my show, that really knew how to listen to me, that really knew how to listen to the names and remember the names, man. Remember the names, because when Dan gets there, he's not going to mention them. Okay, the Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, Jim Comey, Clapper, Brennan, every one of these fools that he made money talking about and educating the people about, the people who were best educated and remember what he taught us, he's now declared war on. He's declared war on anyone that's grifting. I'm sorry, Zio sloppers are grifting. The power of MAGA comes from opposing the establishment, and Trump chose the establishment. And he went 180 on all his promises, and now you're declaring war on people who noticed that. You're a psycho bitch, and this is the only play you have. Anyone.
So people are pissed. I'm just saying, watch regular people. It ends up being some, everybody's got a reason to blame who it is and may or may not be accurate. But the funny thing is that everybody is pissed, righteously, I think. And they want to go out there and then they want to sugarcoat it because they want to sit behind a microphone and tell you. Here's the saddest thing that I've seen in the last, and this is a sad thing. Vince Colonnese working at Silverlock is actually one of the worst things that happened. Because Vince Colonnese is pretty great. He's a great broadcaster. He's a really nice guy from what I've dealt with. Every time we spoke, I very much enjoyed it. I think he did a good job. He's great at radio. And then he got hired on to do the Bongino podcast. I don't think that was a great fit for him because he's not a podcast guy. He's a radio guy. It sounds like he's going to go back to radio. Dan's going to take back the podcast. But what he's in is a position where the people that he gets paid to do, or he gets paid by, they need him to be a cheerleader. It's kind of gross. It's kind of gross when you had, I think, probably decent credibility. And I think he was a good and sober voice when he was working at WMAL in Washington, D.C. And I was on their radio program probably a dozen times. I was on there very frequently. I was friendly with his producer. I liked the thing. I used to listen to Vince on the way into the FBI when I was working there. I used to listen to him when I was driving around. He was on the mornings. Then he got into the afternoon show after I left. So that sucks. And it's the same thing that Megyn Kelly told you. If you're at Fox News, you know what the Fox News position. Well, if you work for Silverlock Media, which is all the people that Dan Bongino employs, then your job is you got to be nice to Dan Bongino. You got to say great things. I'm going to be able to debunk all of these things almost immediately. So we'll play this real quick. But this is the ode to Dan Bongino. And I'm telling you this because Dan is actually a great representation of, you talked a big game. You told us what the problems were and we agreed and we all were on the same page. Like, these are the issues. This is, broadly speaking, the problem that Donald Trump has. But all you care about is the midterms. So you're going to come out and be a big, loud voice, and you're going to try to attack people that are taking away. The focus should be on, this is the great stuff we did. And you can't snow us anymore because people that sit in the middle like me, we're right of center. We're probably right of MAGA. We're probably right of Republican by a lot. We're gettable voters if you make me care. And the only reason I care is you show me that you actually did improvements on my jalopy. You're like, by the way, we swapped out the tires. Everything is smoother. We fixed the suspension. You're not going to have that bumpy thing that was going on previously. And the electrical system, we found the gremlins. There were a couple of wire shorts. We grounded those things or we tied them off. Good to go. And when that happens, you're like, okay, fine. All right, so you're making improvements. I want to see you do more. And then they're like, look, we need another like X number of dollars, X amount of time, and we're going to go out there and get that engine knockout. We're going to fix that cylinder that was having an issue. I think it might be that it's happening in the alternator. You got a misfire in there, so we're going to go clean the brushes, whatever the hell it is. I think I'm close on the terminology there. I'm not a mechanic, but I'm usually not totally out of my depth when I talk with people that are mechanics. Or you could come out there and just bullshit me and tell me you did a great job. This is so easy. Here we go.
I'm very excited to hear that Dan Bongino is officially done at the FBI, that I'm confident that comes as a great relief to Dan. And to summarize how Dan's year went, the FBI director, Kash Patel, sent him off. He said, Dan heads back to the private sector after helping orchestrate a record year for the FBI. And here's how Kash ran the numbers down. He said,
okay, so totally uncritical, just for the start. We're going to let you have a read from an official government account, and you're going to tell us what the numbers are, and then we're going to just unironically and uncritically just accept that must be true. That's not the Vince Colonnese, by the way, that was at WMAL. He would ask some questions.
There was a historic 20% drop in the nationwide murder rate.
There was a historic 20% drop in the nation's murder rate, and the FBI doesn't work murder by and large. Outside of Indian reservations and RICO-inspired murders, which is going to be your transnational organized crime, the FBI doesn't do murder. This is also the same FBI that has been getting shitty reporting and more shitty reporting from the localities. The same stuff that I know Vince and Dan all called out under Biden, that they were getting garbage data because these people don't want to report murders because it looks really, really bad when your murder rate continues to go up. So they just stop reporting them to the FBI.
100% increase in arrests from year to year. That would be arrests being done by the FBI.
Except it's not arrests being done by the FBI. This is so easy to do, guys. Here's the deal. I was talking to another agent yesterday, retired agent, and the discussion goes like this. Man, have you seen all these arrests? My belief is they're just taking credit for state and local arrests. And I was like, yeah, that's obviously what's going on. Those are task force arrests. But a lot of that big bump, that 100% bump in arrests, so they doubled the number of arrests, they come from ICE raids. And so the FBI takes credit for it. DHS takes credit for it. Border Patrol takes credit for it. The same freaking arrest is counted 8 different ways. And by the way, if you had any local task force members from the state police or from your county sheriff or whatever, they also take credit for that arrest. So you're gonna count it 5 times. And anybody who listens to me and was in law enforcement knows exactly what kind of stat juking I'm talking about. Everybody wants to count the stat multiple times. The FBI took credit for arrests that they were on but didn't necessarily do, because this is what should have showed up. The arrests are only the indicator that somebody was put in handcuffs. Did you see a 100% increase in federal prosecutions? You did not. Okay. Go look at the DOJ's website. They have not had a significant uptick in volume of indictments and prosecutions. They're not oftentimes federal arrests. Most of the time, these people are not indicted. They're just deported. So yeah, you've got a shitload of people you can go do. You have a whole captive population of 20,000 or 20 million people in this US that you could go grab. I just want you to know those numbers are crap. And it's sad to see someone fluff it.
1,800 gangs and criminal enterprises disrupted. 2,000.
The word disrupted, by the way, is an FBI stat. I'm just going to stop every single time. An FBI stat, that means not what you think it means. It means that they stopped some sort of ongoing operation. So if there was going to be like a gang member fight and the FBI put in an informant and we arrested one guy and then the fight didn't happen, disruption. The word that you would look for if they were actually breaking the gang apart and no longer it was functional is dismantlement. So these are FBI stats. This is inside baseball, basically, on the way that the FBI does what's called integrated program management. Now, I know this because I worked at the FBI. Dan Bongino knows this because he worked at the FBI, but he's letting Vince Colonnese say it, who did not work at the FBI. And I'm not confident Kash Patel knows it because he's just the FBI director and doesn't know.
1,000+ kilos of fentanyl that were seized. Over 6,000 child victims have been located. Espionage arrests, that would be spies in the United States.
It's not always spies, but okay.
And multiple successful surges, including summer heat, that was violent crime.
They do that every year. More importantly, that 6,000 children located, we don't really know what that actually even means, but here's the sad thing. The saddest thing about the FBI's VCAP program is it's the least funded, it's the least loved. They got the most publicity this year, but they didn't get like a huge surge in bodies. And so the FBI's VCAP program works every freaking day. They are always working and they are always locating people and doing prosecutions. In fact, the FBI's Violent Crimes Against Children program is probably one of the most busy things you can do in the FBI. It's also one of the least interesting things that people want to go to. It is very hard to get people to recruit to that squad. And by the way, if you were like, hey, I want to go do that, that's righteous work, then they don't want you. Not the squad. The squad wants you, but the management doesn't want you going there because they only want people there like for a little bit of time. They would do arrests 2 or 3 times a week in Washington field office. We would regularly be able to support their operations for VCAC. So this was always going on. They just never publicized it before. Just so you guys know, this is not like some shocking. That's why you didn't hear a year-on-year increase number. It's just a hard number. 6,000 sounds really good. All right, here we go.
9,000 arrests in just 3 months. None of it possible without Dan's leadership.
All of it possible without Dan's leadership. Literally all of it possible without any leadership. That's just what the FBI does.
Thank you, Dan Bongino. Yeah, thank you, Dan. Thank you for your service to your country. You know what wasn't even on the list? They caught the pipe bomber. Dan caught the pipe bomber.
You know why it wasn't on the list? Because they didn't catch the pipe bomber. They caught the brony that was an autistic dude that lived down the way, and they jammed him up. So that's...
Honestly, as I said before, when we got the news that Dan was leaving, a lot of points on the scoreboard, and he can leave with his head held high. A lot to be proud of. Everything that is going to happen next in terms of Dan's schedule is up to him, and I can't wait to see it. I'm as eager as you are to see him back behind a microphone, talking to an audience, and giving us his perspective on what exactly went down inside of that government and what the rest of us should make of it. Want to see?
Oh man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for people to take that and then watch what's going on as he's sitting there picking fights on social media. Where's the accountability? Dan was the deputy director of the FBI. He did 0 investigations. That is a completely clueless grab. His entire job should have been shut the hell up and do work. You know who we haven't heard from so far? Andrew Bailey, the former co-deputy director, now deputy director. And in 2 days, no social media. 0. Probably because he's doing the job. And he may or may not be good at it. I have no idea, but we haven't heard anything. Even the people in the Bureau are kind of tight-lipped about it, which is actually a pretty good sign for once. Tom Renz talking about accountability, talking about the problem. This is the issue. If you overpromise and underdeliver, we're going to hold you accountable. And unfortunately, like I say, a lot of people sacrifice their credibility for what? Midterms?
Why didn't they tell the truth? Why are they covering up Epstein? They don't like us asking why there's been no prosecutions of anybody. Why has there been nobody put in jail? No major Democrats, not one. There's nobody doing anything. And yet we're supposed to be okay with this. Just trust the plan, trust the plan, trust the plan. I will trust the plan when I see action. Now, I'm very excited about what Trump is doing with Maduro and Venezuela, because this does tie in with election stuff. So maybe they're going to do something here. I hope so. But are you going to see any COVID prosecutions? Are you going to see anything from anyone related to COVID? I mean, how about the mRNA jabs? Are those okay? You good with those? Are you okay with the billionaires who raped children on Epstein Island? How about Tim Walz not being investigated, despite the fact that the guy that killed Melissa Hortman literally wrote in his confession note that Tim Walz told him to do it? I mean, this is insanity. And by the way, Melissa Hortman was killed a few days after voting against these Somali crooks up in Minnesota, getting any more money, which seems like it was being used to buy off people like Tim Walz and others, right?
I mean, these black pill dealers, they're just out there saying all these negative things. The question is where's the accountability, right? COVID, January 6th, there was a whole list of them. Epstein was one. It's emblematic of a bigger problem. What about drain the swamp? What about getting rid of all the people that we were expecting to see action on? You heard the other guy say it, Comey, Clapper, Brennan. None of that stuff happened. Why did that not happen? And really, where's that COVID accountability? The FBI is fighting tooth and nail against my own lawsuit, my personal lawsuit. Yeah, it's real close to home for me, but I'll just acknowledge my bias. They fired the guy that did the COVID policy for the FBI because of the COVID policy implementation, and then fight our lawsuit alleging that they did the thing they fired the guy for. See if you could follow that. Spencer Evans implemented COVID policy for the FBI. He got rid of a lot of people. I was one of them. He ruined a lot of people's lives, cost them a lot of money, caused them a lot of heartache, screwed up their careers. He was fired for doing that. We sued the FBI for that under the Biden administration. Trump administration comes in, same as it ever was, same story. Nobody goes after it. Might be a reminder. Bongino was a COVID shot taker. Some of you guys online have been not knowing that, I guess. I guess people in the audience didn't know that. They're like, maybe he took the vax. Did he take the vax? Yeah, he said that publicly.
I'm going to tell you something. When it came to the Secret Service debacle and keeping President Trump alive,
Oops, that's not the right one. That's the other one. Yeah, no, Dan took the shot. I've got another clip of that somewhere else. Maybe, should we find it? Yeah, we might as well. There it is. That's probably here.
I'm going to tell you something. When it came,
why do I have the same clip twice? I don't know. This is a one-man show, guys. So let me find the clip. Now that I said it, we're going to have to find it because I'm not going to walk away from that. There it is. COVID shot Bongino. Bing.
Why? I watched this clip from the Tucker Carlson show citing some research coming out. And time is now past and we're starting to see things. It's really the most troubling minute 20 seconds I've had to listen to in a long time because I'm scared of what's coming.
What's coming?
I had it a little while ago and I'm afraid the repercussions of this for a lot of people have not been felt. Here, check this out.
Okay, he's talking about it is the COVID shot. So sorry about that. That was me putting it together on the end, on the fly. Yeah, so we get it. So is everything going to be okay? Is there going to be accountability? How long is the timeline? You guys know who Bobby Sauce is? I see him on X. He's pretty darn funny. He's also really sarcastic. He also walks around in a plate carrier in his neighborhood, which I love because I sort of aspire to be someone that does that. I actually have the self-awareness that if I walk around with a phone in front of me and I tape myself, like I'm going to hate me because I hate people that do that. But for some reason, I still consume people content when they actually do it. So anyway, here's Bobby Sauce walking and asking about the timeline. Same thing Tom Renz was talking about. It's people that are funny. It's people that are serious. It's people that are gettable voters that are conservative, but not necessarily GOP people. Post-partisan, bacon cheeseburger nationalists, call it what you want. This is where I think there's a big chunk of the voter base that's not going to turn out for the midterms because of their fault, not because of ours.
Genuine question to people who are getting the squirts at the idea that Maduro is going to be the key to unlocking the fraud of the 2020 election. What exactly do you think is going to happen? What do you want to happen? Because the Constitution says the president can only serve 2 terms. So it's not like he's just going to get another term added onto it. Then, of course, I'm seeing posts that are like, buckle up, like indictments are coming. What indictments? Who's going to get arrested? Comey didn't get arrested. Bill Clinton didn't get arrested. Hillary Clinton didn't get arrested. Hunter Biden didn't get arrested. Who has been arrested?
Who?
I've been watching people say, hold the line, something big is coming for the last 7 years. First it was chance of Hillary, lock her up. Then it was, no, we're not going to do that. Then it was like, hold the line, Patriots. Everything's going to come, but he has to wait for the second term. And then after the election, it was like, to hold the line, guys, we're about to release the Kraken. Just wait till January. Then when Biden got in, it got squirrely. And it was like, no, he intentionally lost so that he could expose everybody. And then when he gets back in office, everything's going to happen. Then it was Epstein files. And if he only gets in again, and Cash and Bongino are going to go scorched earth. And now it's been a year and Bongino is already out. The Poopstein files got covered up, or whatever you want to believe. And now it's yet another piece of red meat. Just hold the line and wait, because something big is about to happen. And Maduro somehow has the key to this. And Trump's social media team is feeding this, because they are not stupid. There are young people in comms that are watching what people are talking about on X and on Instagram and on TikTok and on Facebook and on YouTube. They're watching. They just know that this will satiate people in the interim. They'll just keep the thing going. But I truthfully just genuinely don't understand what people think that this specific outcome would actually lead to, or who.
Yeah. The Q thing, the psyop that keeps people saying at any moment, that tune in next week cliffhanger experience, that anything could happen at any moment. It's really bad. It's detrimental. And for people that are grown up enough to actually look at the trend line and say, you know what, you promised me an awful lot of things. You didn't bring me anything. You can't Q post your way out of this stuff. That was always crap. What do they say in sales in the old days? They would just say that money talks and bullshit walks. There's an awful lot of walking going on right now, people, and we know it. And so, the people that are paying attention to it doesn't make you a black pillar. It makes you a pragmatist. It makes you a person who recognizes the truth on the ground. What is your timeline? You did a disastrous PR rolled out. You promised and you didn't get it done. And so that's on you now. That's not my fault. That's not something Dan Bongino can come back to the microphone. Sometimes I'm like, do I use those names as examples too often? No, like the people that I'm listening to are saying the same thing. It's not just me. It just turns out that I actually dealt with those guys personally, and it's kind of it's a disaster. There's nothing more sad personally for me than knowing that this guy, Bongino, sent me a text with no plan whatsoever. For all of you guys think there was a plan, this was the plan. My response to him was, what's the plan? We just need to move forward and focus. Well, you can't focus your way out of it if you don't actually have something that's concrete. Here's Jess. We've been playing him a lot. I talked to him the other day in a space for a couple hours, so I find him to be kind of the spirit animal. This is the way that I used to talk to my friends when I was not in government, when I was not in a podcast space. And it rings true. This is what regular people, regular men, maybe they're more articulate than you about this. Maybe they're more pissed off than you are normally. But if you gave it a lot of thought, you probably would sound exactly like Jess, especially if you have calluses on your hands and you drive a piece of shit jalopy and you want it to function and you want your government to not serve itself, but maybe even think about considering serving you at some point.
I've got a serious question and I need to hear you guys' answer for this. Get in my comments and let me know. When you hear people say you have to be patient and wait for accountability, I want to know how long you're willing to be patient. Is it 6 months? Is it a year? 27? 2028? 2029? Do you even have a line in the sand? Are you just sitting there waiting for the accountability to come and you have no timeline for that? Have you already lost patience? Get in my comments and let's take a poll here. How long are you willing to be patient for accountability?
I'll take the same question and I'll take the same responses. Do me a favor. Let me know. How long is too long to wait? Because I'll just suggest to you that by the midterms get around, and that's essentially what Trump told us, when the midterms come around, that's the end of that. Then you get Trump impeachment if they don't hold the House, and I don't expect they will. I just don't. Dave Smith, we'll wrap up with a little thought from Theo Vaughn here as we close out the podcast. I do have something fun for you. Got another song from our buddy Shane. Here we go. This is Dave Smith talking about the PR disaster, which is what this was. And again, there are many places talking about it. This is not just my, came up with it on my own. We all independently saw this and we're like, this is a problem. And it's going to be an ongoing problem if you can't address it honestly.
There's a broader thing that's involved here, right? The point is that the drain the swamp Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, their whole brand, the whole thing was that, look, there are these criminals in DC and look at all the things that they've done. And they would all talk, it wasn't just Epstein, they would all talk about Russiagate, the 2020 election. I mean, look, what these guys are claiming, and I don't know about the 2020 election, but they're 100% right on Russiagate and Epstein when they were talking about it before they sold out, is that they go, look, the intelligence agencies framed a presidential candidate, and then the sitting president, they framed him of treason in order to unseat a democratically elected president of the United States of America. That is the biggest scandal in the history of the United States of America. Like these are huge crimes, sedition, treason, very serious crimes.
And nobody's paying them.
They locked down the whole country based on pseudoscience. They covered up a senile president. They covered up a pedophile ring. They like all, and now you guys are in charge of the Justice Department. How many indictments? Zero. And then you're going to sit there and Kash Patel is going to tweet out a picture of like some dude throwing a sandwich at a cop and go, we got him. Because this is Kash Patel's America, boys. People don't get away with crimes here. Like that's, oh, wow, great job. Wow, Kash Patel, we're all so impressed that you brought down Chauncey Billups. Like, okay, that's great, you know? Like, that's great, but like, that's not exactly what we were voting for.
You're getting digital bread and circuses. Essentially, that's what the social media thing is. So I hope they pivot from this. I don't know if you can, but the frustration that you're going to find with the guys that are starting to leave the administration, anybody that leaves it, what your frustration is, it's not that they didn't do their job well, as much as they stole from us. And I see it on X all day long. Every single post that you've ever seen in the last probably, I don't know, 2-3 weeks as Bongino has been kind of transitioning towards coming back into media. It's very simple. You freaking stole from us. You stole a generational opportunity to fix a lethal problem to the American system. That's what happened. It's not about the fact that you didn't do a good job. It's that you took a year that we needed. And we are now 50% of the timeline. You guys want to talk about the midterms? 50% of the time to the midterms, you spent playing around, making up statistics, getting into social media fights, messaging a bunch of Q posts, and saying just because you don't see it happening doesn't mean it's not happening. It was happening. You were fucking stealing from us. Excuse my language. That's what happened. And that is not something easily forgiven. We can all kind of get over the idea if somebody is not well suited to a position. But a honest and regular and self-reflective person would say, I'm not the guy for the job. I got to step out because I'm burning daylight. And now everyone's going to suffer for it. Let me also just tell you before we do the palate cleanse. Okay, well, I'll do this real quick too. Support us on Rumble for as long as we're there. I just keep telling you that I think we're going to get kicked off because I just keep thinking we're going to get kicked off because that guy is petty and pretty vindictive. YouTube, you guys are awesome. Thanks for growing over there. We're going to come up on 20,000 on the total subscribers. That's epic. Join us on the call-in show tomorrow. If you're a subscriber or a member of the channel in various places, then you can get the call-in number and we do a call-in show where you guys tell me what you think, which is really what I like knowing. I like knowing I'm not alone. I like knowing when you think I'm wrong. I'm cool with all those things. So we do those on Thursday nights. Check us out. Either way, subscribe to the channel where you're watching. Like it. If you're watching on X, join us on one of the monetized platforms because you can join the chat. And the chat is epic. Our chat is the most friendly, intelligent, and functional group of people who are willing to think through the problem. And if you want to watch us while you're listening, you can go to Spotify. And I think that's the best audio. Check that out. I just plug these over and over again. Nobody goes to Spotify. It's like, you suck. It's like we've increased 1,000% last year on Spotify specifically because it's a better platform. And I didn't know that before I was a podcaster, for whatever it's worth. I was an Apple podcast guy, just like many of you are. All right, here's what Dan should have said. Really easy. If Dan was an honest person and he wanted to rehabilitate his thing and I was going to give him PR advice, of which apparently I'm better at than he is, here's the way you would have done it. Dan should have come out and said, I understand that many of you are frustrated that the last year didn't bring all the things you hoped. And I am also frustrated. I left this position, and by leaving it and leaving this administration, there are two things that I can tell you. One, I will not be able to share all the things that you hope. And two, I'm still in support of Donald Trump and his agenda, and I want to work to help that out. I understand that the frustration is going to result in some bad feelings and some animosity from some of you who expected more, and I know that I let you down on that. And so I'm going to take my medicine, and now below on this thread, Drop the memes that you've all been building. Do your worst. I'm ready to take the rotten fruit thrown at the stage. And I think I've earned it. And then I hope we can go and be successful future. If he owned it and did that, then people would be like, it's hard to be mad at somebody that takes credit for their failure. Instead, he decided to pick a fight with Matt Gaetz, and he's going to pick a fight with me, and maybe with Nick Fuentes and some other things, and Alex Jones, and he's out there threatening journalists behind the scenes, and there are people that are sending me quiet, private messages saying, Dan has been shit-talking for a long time about what goes wrong in the administration. If he doesn't come out and say that stuff publicly, which we're pretty confident he won't, he's going to get roasted by all the people that he's been running his mouth to behind the scenes. Dan is not a good guy for OPSEC, so this is not going to work out real well for him. And that's unfortunate, because he could be a net good if he had a little bit of humility and some sort of self-reflection. That's not going to happen. For any of you who are asking, why am I telling you? I'm telling you because I know he's not going to do it. And if he was smart, he would have. All right. How about something fun? How about the slop? I don't know why slop is caught on. It wasn't me. I didn't start it, but it is funny. And so for those of you that are not slop consumers, this is not about you. But for those of you that go to Fox News and get whatever you're being fed, this is for you. It's a pretty small group of the Kyle Seraphin Show audience that can listen to that stuff. Just a catchy tune, pigs at the trough. Nobody wants to be this thing. This is kind of a warning for you. Musical outlude. God bless you guys. We'll go to the outro right after this.
It's another day in the Matrix. I hope we're all...
That is not what it was supposed to be. I grabbed the wrong one. It is supposed to be slop. Where the heck is the slop? Slop music. Oh, sorry. I had Bongino slop. Here we go. Enjoy.
Line up at the trough, red hats tight, same take, dripping every night. Snouts down deep in the influencer feed, eating whatever the algorithm needs. Don't ask questions, don't look up, just clap real hard and fill the cup. They say it's truth, say it's based, same one mess, different face. Someone rings a bell, they all run fast. Yesterday's lies dressed up as facts. Slop, shovel in the slop, MAGA ink yelling, look what he's got. Slop, heads down, not a lot. If it smells like bullshit, eat the slop. Promised land just over the hill, still waiting, still paying the bill. No wars, cheap gas, freedom for you, but the trough says, hey, darn, what you do? One pig asks, hey, why's nothing changed? They scream, fat, 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 kick him away, can't break ranks, can't think too hard. That's how you lose your feeding card. They say winning, they say trust, while the same old hands scoop up the dust. Slop, corporate grade slop, reheated lies in a red hat pot. Slop, brain on autopilot mode if Trump's so great. Why the slop? Red hat clean, mouth full of mud, cheering real loud for imaginary blood. No chains visible, still won't leave, cause the trough feels safe when you don't think. Refill the trough, magnetic. Who owns the farm? Same damn pigs, just richer. Slop, keep eating the slop. Don't look around, don't question the crop. Slop, smile for the shot. Freedom ain't real if it lives in a trough of slop. Keep eating the slop. Don't look around, don't question the crop. Slop, smile for the shot. Freedom ain't real if it lives in a trough of heads up hurts. Truth tastes bad, but you ain't free just cause you're mad. Bell rings again. Watch 'em run.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.